Welcome to Harvard Divinity School. So I'm Janet Gyatso. I'm actually a faculty member, and I teach Buddhism here. But I'm also the academic dean, so that means I'm in charge of the curricular programs. And so this session is going to be close to an hour, a little bit less, in which we're going to hear from the heads of the 3 major degree programs at Harvard Divinity School, and then we'll also hear from the Registrar. And what I'm going to do is have each person talk and then give them about 5 minutes after their talk that you can ask questions specifically of them, just because if you hear all of them, you'll probably forget your questions from the first part. And so we'll start with the PhD, because he's the person who's sitting closest to me. So this is David Holland, one of our other faculty members. And I guess he's going to explain the fact that the PhD program is basically in the Faculty of Arts and Science. But the boundaries between arts and science and divinity are very porous. And so many of the Divinity School faculty advise the doctoral program, and we're very much involved in it. So it's complicated, but it's not exactly located in the Divinity School, but the Divinity School has a lot to do with it. So that's why he's here. So, David Holland.
Hi, welcome. We're grateful to have you here, and it's nice to have had the chance to have met some of you, and look forward to the opportunity to meet more of you. Grateful that you're here exploring our programs. My assumption is that most of you are anticipating applying to one of our master's programs, so maybe my portion of this conversation is a little less relevant, but for those of you that are anticipating the pursuit of a doctoral degree as part of your academic career, I'm happy to answer any questions and try and address what doctoral work at Harvard in religion might look like. So as Janet has already indicated, the PhD program is actually housed in the Faculty of Arts and Sciences, not at the Divinity School. And if I might just clarify one misconception that I've already heard from some visitors to DivX, we no longer are admitting students to the THD program, which was a historic program here at the Divinity School, a doctoral program housed within the Divinity School. The THD programs and the PhD programs merged a few years ago. And so now the only doctoral program in religion is the PhD program administered through the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences. So at Harvard, there is not a Department of Religious Studies. We have what we call the Committee on the Study of Religion, which is an interdisciplinary, interdepartmental gathering of scholars who oversee education in the study of religion at Harvard. Don't be concerned about the title committee. It's actually a really well-run, thanks to our administrators, some of whom are here. Elise Regna, who's our new administrator over at the Committee on the Study of Religion, a very collegial group of scholars who manage the program in a way that I think provides students with a really exceptional education in the study of religion. The doctoral program includes the opportunity to take courses in units across the campus community, and I think that's one of its distinct advantages. But as Professor Gyatso has already indicated, a large number of those courses and faculty resources are located here at the Divinity School. And so the relationship between the Committee on the Study of the Religion and the Divinity School is very close. My faculty appointment is in the Divinity School. The chair for the Committee on the Study of Religion has a joint appointment with the Faculty of Arts and Sciences and the Divinity School. And many of those that you will encounter in your doctoral program will have a close affiliation with the Divinity School. We do have, I think, a historic tie between our master's programs at the Divinity School and the doctoral program in the Committee on the Study of Religion. In any given year, and this is somewhat anecdotal, I don't have the quantitative data to back this up, but just based on my experience on the admissions committee, somewhere between a third to a half of our PhD admits are coming out of Divinity School programs. They're familiar with Harvard, they're familiar with the faculty. The transition from the master's programs to the PhD programs seems to be very smooth and successful for most of them. And so the master's degree programs here are a historic link. I was going to say pipeline, which might be overstating it a little bit, but that there is a strong tie between or among the programs. I'm happy to entertain any questions you have about the curricular expectations or the admissions process or things that might be on your mind about the PhD program in religion. Yes?
Could you address what the overall look of the PhD program is at Harvard, and what are the language requirements?
Mm-hmm. I can. So the PhD program in religion at Harvard requires 4 semesters of coursework. The residency requirement is 4 courses per semester. The language requirements included in that are two languages of scholarly proficiency in languages of scholarship, which is usually defined as French, German, Spanish, though you can petition, depending on your specialization, for other scholarly languages. And then whatever languages are required for your own research agenda, and that would be determined by you and your advisor. In terms of what is needed for you to get into the sources on which your dissertation work will be based. There is a general examination after the 4 semesters of coursework, and the general examination consists of 4 exams of sort of descending specificity: a theories and methods exam, a general exam in the larger field in which you're considering your scholarship, and then a couple of exams that are more specific in terms of your particular focus within that larger field. And then after the general examinations, you begin your dissertation work with a proposal that is submitted to the committee and approved, and then you can launch into your own independent research under the supervision of your primary advisor and your doctoral committee. In terms of financial aid, which is often a question on people's minds, so I probably ought to address it right up front, the PhD program in the study of religion at Harvard comes with 5 years of living stipend guaranteed and 6 years of tuition waiver guaranteed. The typical graduate student is taking closer to 7 years to complete a PhD program, and even historians like me can do the math that there's a little bit of a gap there. But our students have been, in my experience, uniformly successful in securing additional funding sources to ensure that they have their living needs met for the term of their doctoral program. Does that answer your question? Are there other?
Yes. Kind of sidebar. Is there a focus possibility for comparative religious studies?
Yes. Yeah. Comparative religion is one of our
doctoral subfields. Could you say what that's about? What that looks like?
Couldn't speak to the specifics of that field, except that you would work specifically with your advisor to determine a plan of study. Every doctoral student will do this, and there are courses that are specifically designed for comparative religion, but you would not be obligated to remain within those. Between you and your advisor, you can determine other courses that would speak to your particular approach to the comparative study of religion. So there's quite a bit of flexibility worked into the program within the general outlines of the course requirements. I should have mentioned when describing the curricular structure of the program that there are 2 common seminars, that is seminars that every doctoral student must take. They're labeled 2001, 2002, which is probably meaningless to you now, but they will be taken in the first and third semesters of the doctoral program, and they're designed to provide a common grounding in some of the major literature on the theories and methods in the study of religion. Beyond that, you're required to take 2 courses outside of your specialization. And then the remainder of the courses are between you and your advisor, your committee, in determining what will best prepare you for your research in years 3, 4, and 5.
Any other questions?
You spoke about 7 years. Do you know on average the amount of time to complete coursework if you're transitioning from the master's program?
So the coursework requirement is the same if you're coming from the master's program or if you're coming from some other program. A relevant point to make in relation to that question is the level of expectation that somebody have a master's degree prior to applying to the doctoral program. There is no requirement to have a master's degree in hand or even in process when you apply to the doctoral program, but I will say in the study of religion, it is the norm that applicants have a master's degree. But it doesn't change the coursework requirement. One of the things that does happen, some of my colleagues might get a little nervous with me going down this avenue, but I'm just going to be candid with you, that students who have been here for 2 or 3 years as part of a master's program and then transition into a doctoral program sometimes feel like the curricular offerings feel like a bit of a repeat for the next 2 years, at least at in some level. And so we do have ways to tailor particular kinds of reading and research courses to your specific interests. And many of our students who are transitioning from our own master's programs into our own doctoral program take advantage of those to push their own reading and research, their own sort of curricular design beyond what seems to be available on the surface of the catalog.
But it's 2 years.
Right.
Everybody does 2 years of coursework, and that's it.
Could you just briefly talk about what interests you in New England church history, and
Yeah.
same for you, Janet, with religious studies?
It's great, but it's a great and a fair question. It's I can't do it. We don't have time right now. Okay, I'm sorry.
I'd be happy to talk with you afterward.
Yeah, I would too. Okay, we need to go on to the next person, which is namely the next speaker.
Can I just say one thing? I just
Yeah.
want to mention, I'm the administrator in the PhD program in the study of religion. We do have a website which has an extensive FAQ section. David has addressed some of the questions, but those questions and many, many others, as well as a full description of the program, is at the website, which is studyofreligion.fas.harvard.edu. So feel free to visit that. I'll be here around for part of the day as well.
And let me also just add, because I feel bad about saying no to you, but you can look each of us have our own website, which does have like 2 paragraphs or something, and so you can see what we're doing. Okay, next is Professor Dudley Rose, who is the chair of the MDiv, or the Masters of Divinity degree, one of the 2 main degrees that we do at Harvard Divinity School.
Yeah, thank you, Janet, and welcome to all of you. I hope you have a wonderful and informational time here today, or for however long you're here. The MDiv degree is the historic professional degree of the Divinity School. In some sense, it's the degree, though it wasn't called that was the reason for the founding of Harvard, which was to, at that point, prepare clergy in colonial New England. Things have changed a bit since then. So let me just start with telling you the degree goals. We are required to put those forth for our accreditation, and it's a useful exercise for us, and hopefully will give you a window into the degree, and then I'll have a few more things to say. So the degree goals, the learning goals that we have currently are students will demonstrate the capacity and tools to analytically address and critically confront issues of social justice and structured forms of violence in our society. Students will accurately and judiciously engage the sacred texts and histories, theologies, and practices of their traditions, as well as multi-religious and multicultural contexts in which they practice their ministries. They will demonstrate an understanding of the term ministry as a practice that emerges out of a rich intellectual life brought to bear upon the needs and hopes of the world, and which integrates diverse academic, spiritual, and socio-cultural resources. Students will be able to demonstrate the capacity to lead and cultivate communities in ways that build deep spiritual, intellectual, and ethical bonds. And finally, we'll be able to demonstrate the capacity to practice ministry in ways that are attuned to and cultivate surprising, unexpected, and creative ingenuity. So, and those are in the handbook on the Registrar's website, so there's no need to worry about them. Now, in this context, Harvard Divinity School's MDiv program is a multi-religious MDiv program. That's unusual for a Master of Divinity programs, and certainly to be as fully integrated into the curriculum as it is here is probably unique. But you can study for an MDiv in any tradition that you can find coursework here at Harvard to do. And I mean by Harvard now, both the Divinity School and the other faculties at Harvard. One of the things in both of the master's programs to be attentive to is that you have access to the whole university, and don't make the mistake of saying, gee, they ought to offer this here at the Divinity School, and they don't when it's actually offered in another faculty. Become a citizen of the broader world. This multi-religious MDiv is interesting in the sense that you will be in many classes with many people of different religious traditions. So we don't divide it into sets of tracks that are kind of pneumatic tubes running through the student body, but rather you'll have some classes that will be focused in traditions that you're embedded in, and you'll have others that you'll be taking in common with other students. About 35 to 45% of our MDiv students will go into some form of traditional kind of ministry, and I mean by that ordained ministry, lay ministry, or chaplaincy, and often in traditions that do not ordain out of a school like this, Buddhism and others, but chaplaincy will be one of the tracks that people will be attracted to. We do, again, unusually have a significant number of our MDiv graduates who will go on to doctoral work and teaching at university level. So that feeder, or that route that David spoke of, is applicable to in both programs. The remainder of our graduates will go on to careers such as counseling, law, medicine, community development, government, public policy, or in the nonprofit sector. So your challenge here will be not only to locate yourself within this multi-religious context, but then to define for yourself what it means for you to be doing ministry. What does that mean as you think about your vocation? And we'll help you along with that, but that will be a part of the fun and the challenge. As I mentioned, the other faculties that we have here at the Divinity School, we also have 9 other schools, or 8 other schools now, I guess, in the Boston Theological Institute, that is schools within the Boston area that are seminaries or theological schools where you can take courses. That's often helpful for denominational. Okay, and the requirements are very flexible. Largely, they are distribution requirements. They require you to be certain that you've taken sacred texts, histories, theologies, and practices, and that you have met requirements in arts of ministry and other aspects. Let me just finally say that our data indicates that HDS graduates 5 to 10 years after graduation are almost all working in the fields that they had hoped to, and were highly satisfied with their preparation at Harvard. So that's something of which we're very proud.
Can I just add one point, is that another requirement is 3 semesters of a language at this particular point. So you have to take language courses. Which language it is, there's a lot of options, but some language. Okay, so we have some time for questions.
Hi, Professor. My interest is in religion and literature, and I know that I could take English courses in the graduate school, but what would my MDiv look like? How would I work with my advisor? Are there a certain number of classes I cannot? Is there like a limit that I can't go over for courses outside the Divinity School?
Okay, those are all good questions, and I'll give a bit of a tip of the iceberg, but these are lined out again in the online catalog, so don't worry about either my lack of coverage or your memory. So you can't take more than half of your courses outside of the Divinity School faculty, but you can take up to half of them. If you're concentrating in a particular field or a particular religion, then at least 3 courses that you take will have to be outside of that religion in some other religion. We have a long-standing requirement of that. As Janet mentioned, there is a requirement for language, there's a requirement for sacred texts or scripture courses, for courses in histories, theologies, and practices, and courses in arts of ministry. And generally, between you and your advisor, you will work out the plan of study and grid, since the requirements are quite flexible. Often, if you're in a tradition that has certain requirements, you'll be matching the grid of our graduation requirements with the grid of the requirements of your tradition. Because of the flexibility, that's not all that hard if you pay attention.
Can I also add one more thing? You didn't say anything about field ed, right? Did you?
I did.
Oh, you can. Right, never mind.
How are the language requirements met by the 8-week summer intensive course? Is that totally covered by the 3-course requirement, or?
The summer language program here at the Divinity School is an intensive program that amounts to 2 terms of language, or so it meets 2 of the 3 courses. So often students who are incoming will do the summer language program and do a 3rd semester in the fall when they enter and have completed the language requirement.
This is a highly practical question. Once you have the degree, the MDiv degree, and you've done coursework in counseling, is that degree, can you use that in a private practice, which then people can use their insurance, or is there other ways that you can translate that in the same way that, say, an MSW would be able to do that?
I won't be able to answer all the ins and outs of that, but most of our students who are using this degree for counseling are going into some form of chaplaincy and will be credentialed by the Association of Professional Chaplains. Typically, if you are looking for licensing and insurance, you'll need a degree like a psychology degree or an MSW. It depends, it varies from state to state, but typically the MDiv in and of itself is not credentialing towards licensing as a mental health counselor.
So I'm curious, how do you think the MDiv prepares someone for academia, and not necessarily within religion, but within other sorts of parts of the humanities?
That's a really hard question to answer. The academic rigor of the master's programs here is very high. What you choose to study, therefore, would determine how well you prepare yourself for doctoral work in other related or not related fields. So generally, you want to work with faculty here, along with your advisor, who are interested or know the field you're thinking of, to make sure that you can incorporate that kind of preparation into your coursework. I think that's the best I can do.
Can I just add to that for a minute? Maybe not. But one of the things that I've found that the MDiv does very well in preparing people for academic study in lots of different fields is the thesis requirement. It's an intensive thesis requirement as part of the MDiv program, and for those that are entering humanistic fields, that sets them up, I think, very well for doctoral programs and academic careers coming out of that.
And also some social science, so anthropology and political science are fields that people can go to from this.
Yeah, my subjective impression would be that about a quarter of our master's students who go on to PhD programs, about a quarter go on to PhD programs in fields other than religion.
Okay, one more question, and then we'll go on to our next person. Yeah.
I was wondering if you could speak to within the MDiv, the position of students interested in humanism and coming from more secular backgrounds, and the place for them in ministry and how that looks within the program.
We have a number of students who would identify as humanists, some who would maybe identify as nuns who might fit that description. They've navigated the program successfully. It's unclear, I think, in terms of ordination kinds of things where that leads vocationally, right? Because most traditions, or at least the Protestant traditions that ordain, have those structures and procedures. Many of such students may be Unitarian Universalists, and so they'll pursue ordination within the Unitarian Universalist movement. But others have gone on to chaplaincy. You'll have to work with an advisor to interpret what it means to think about sacred texts, for example, because we're very careful not to sort of just let you off the hook because you're humanists, right? We want you to engage in some texts, whether that in one way or another can be considered sacred, as an example.
And if I can just add to that, one way to think about the MDiv also is just it's a 3-year master's program in religion. So a lot of people who I know who are, regular straight ahead academics, really benefited a lot from the amazing opportunity to expand your horizons also just as a human being, so the whole thing about field ed, you get this experience working in some kind of context, helping people, which I myself, for example, never did. It's like an amazing thought that, but then go straight into academics. So that's one way that people understand the MDiv program.
Yeah, and we do have a field ed panel immediately following this. And I would say even if you are an MTS student, given to what Janet just said, you may find some real interest in hearing about that because MTS students also may do field ed.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you for all your questions, and you will be able to ask more questions later individually, but let's go on to our MTS program with Professor Dan McCannon.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. It's wonderful to see all of you here and to share this exciting day with you as you explore what might be the next step in your life journey. I'm Dan McCannon. As Janet indicated at the beginning, all of us wear multiple hats around here. My teaching is in the history of religion in the United States, with a particular emphasis on Unitarian Universalism, and I'd be happy to talk about that at lunch or in office hours. Right now, I'm representing the MTS Curriculum Committee, which I have the pleasure of chairing. The Master of Theological Studies is a degree that will equip you to be a responsible participant in scholarly conversations about religion and a member of a community of scholars that includes both academics, people working in colleges and universities, and people who bring a sophisticated understanding of religion to careers in public service, the arts, law, medicine, education, and many other fields. Our degree goals represent our vision of what you need to have in order to be a participant in that scholarly community. You need to have a deep understanding of one particular religious tradition or one particular approach to the study of religion. You need to have a broad familiarity with the study of religion as a whole. You need to be able to use multiple theories and methods to investigate specific religious phenomena. And you need to have a sensitivity to the social locations and power dynamics of justice and injustice that shape the way people engage religion, both as practitioners and as scholars. Our goals also indicate the diverse vocational paths that MTS students will take. We promise you that we'll give you a curriculum that will make you well prepared for further academic study in religion, if that's what you choose, and also a curriculum that will allow you to integrate your understanding into other fields. If you think you know which of those paths you belong in, the academic path or the bringing a sophisticated knowledge of religion into other fields, you should know that many, perhaps most of our MTS students shift their understanding about their own vocational path during their 2 years with us. To help you achieve the goals of our curriculum, we have a curriculum that is characterized by diversity and flexibility. We have only one course that is required of everyone. In addition, we ask you to take 6 courses in a specific area of focus, 3 courses outside that area, and to demonstrate intermediate reading competence in a language of your choice. We have 18 different areas of focus to choose from, dozens of courses every semester offered here at the Divinity School, and the opportunity to take courses across Harvard University and across the community of seminaries and theological schools in the Boston area. As Dudley mentioned, you also have the opportunity to take advantage of things that are present because of the MDiv program, especially our excellent field education program. If you look at the list of areas of focus, you may be a little bit bedazzled. It's a long list, and a lot of them have overlaps. Some of you will be thinking, I'm interested in all of them. How can I possibly choose? And others of you will be thinking the exact thing that I'm passionate about is not on this list. Maybe Harvard's not right for me. So let me tell you how we came up with the list. We looked at our faculty and our course offerings and asked, what are some of the ways a student could come up with a coherent program of study? What are some subfields that are broad enough to stretch students, but focused enough that it's possible to develop a degree of mastery within 2 years? And we went through, once we had identified 18 areas like that, we got tired and we quit. So by identifying an area of focus, we're promising you that it's possible to get the courses and the mentoring you need to be solidly grounded in that subfield. We're not saying that no other paths are possible. In fact, we definitely know of some other paths not on the list that are eminently possible. As long as they're, so we give you the opportunity to develop your own area of focus as long as its breadth and viability is similar to those on the official list. So if you want to study an area that's not on the list, it's helpful to ask some questions during your time here today and get a sense from me or from other members of our faculty about whether it is the sort of thing that we're in a position to support well. You should also know that the area of focus is not a major that appears on your transcript. It's just a tool that you use to make sure that you've got both breadth and depth in your curriculum. And many students shift areas of focus over their time here. I should also say that most of our courses are affiliated with 3 or 4 different areas of focus. So it may be that the curriculum you want to do could work equally well in Hindu studies or South Asian religions, or perhaps equally well in history of Christianity or women and gender studies and religion. Given the flexibility of our curriculum, we put a lot of emphasis on advising. It's very important in your time here to work closely with your faculty advisor and other professors to make sure that you're not simply sampling from the riches of Harvard, but crafting a curriculum that is coherent and is really attuned to your individual educational and vocational goals.
So can we want to go to questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Hope, and I'm here with the DivX program. And I was just wondering about the research component with MTS. So I think that there's no thesis required like the MDiv program. So what research opportunities available? Could you research with a professor if there's one very specific area of study that you plan to continue with a PhD or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. Because our MTS students are so diverse in vocational goals, we've been very reluctant to have overarching requirements. But we're keenly aware that many students do want to have a substantial research project. And there are a couple of ways you can do that. So one is through a reading and research course with an individual faculty member. Most of us offer, work individually with, maybe 2 or 3 students each semester in these kinds of reading and research courses. They could be very broad, but they could also be a focused project of developing a thesis type work. Several of us offer courses that are research oriented. So Ahmed Ragab, I know, offers the Science and Religion Symposium, where every student undertakes a major research project. I think, David, you do something similar for historians. I've also been doing a non-credit research group for students who are working with various professors on reading and research courses, but also want a group of peers to bounce their research off with.
Hi, I'm Jessie. I'm also here with DivX. I was actually wondering how often are dual degrees pursued by your students from other schools within Harvard, or if you can actually answer that question.
Yes, so we offer that possibility. You do have to apply separately to the 2 programs, both with a number of programs at Harvard and with the diplomacy degree at Fletcher at Tufts. You can probably say what the numbers are.
Mm-hmm. It's actually a very small, it's a small but growing number. Most of our dual degree students pursue that either with the law school, Harvard Kennedy School of Government, or Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts.
So you mentioned that it's possible that your particular interest might fit within several of the subcategories, but when it comes to applying, how do you recommend navigating that if you can already identify several areas it might fit into?
Yeah, don't stress out about it. When we, just put whatever seems like the best fit at the moment, but know that it's not a strong factor in admissions decisions. It's not like we have quotas of different areas and you can game the system by applying in the less popular area.
Hi, I'm Quinn, also from the DivX program. And you mentioned how the MTS degree can be composed of courses offered out under the entire Harvard umbrella. And I'm curious if the medical school is in that umbrella, and what it would look like, if even possible, for the juxtaposition of the MTS and the Master of Medical Science Bioethics degrees.
Yeah, that's a great question. From our end, we are radically open to the rest of Harvard. The rest of Harvard has different degrees of openness to us, which is not so much about prejudice about us, but some professional schools have highly scripted curricula, and others have curricula that are more flexible and similar to ours. Can you give a more detailed answer?
Actually, with regard to your specific question, the Master in Bioethics, if I remember that correctly, this is a fairly new program, 1-year program, and we have had several students pursue that, but it is not, because it is only a 1-year master's program, it's not, it doesn't fall under the umbrella of a dual or joint degree program. But we have had students in the last few years take a leave of absence to pursue that program, come back and complete an MDiv or an MTS.
I can just add to that the whole idea of joining the study of religion with other fields, and ethics and bioethics is like one major one, but there's so many others as well, is something that this school is extremely interested in, and we're trying to expand that possibility. It's not like we have all those programs in place now, but you're asking a question like that, you're on a trend that we definitely support. So we would do anything that we could. It's not necessarily that we always can, but anything that we can to encourage that. But like, for example, we have like a new position that we haven't filled yet, so we're going to be looking for someone in the area of business ethics and religion. But there's so many different areas. So we strongly feel like the study of religion can contribute to so many things in the world. But our own capacity is primarily in this more straight ahead study of religion per se. But just to tell you, we're very, very open and would try as hard as we could to make that possible. And in the future, we'll do it more. So.
In that vein, is there currently a lot of crossover between the business school and the Divinity School, and conversations happening on, like, kind of like what Pope Francis has been calling us to join together?
Yeah, we have an alum, Derek Von Beaver, who works on the faculty at the business school, and a number of connections like that. It's an ongoing conversation. I think when that new chair is filled, it's going to really...
That is an actual conversation that's been happening between the two faculties, and as I say, the dean was able to raise money to support a chair, which is a major thing. Then filling the chair, you have to go through a whole search process, and so, but that's going to happen. That's definitely there.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth. I hope no one asked this question while I was taking notes already. But I'm curious if it's more common for folks to go for the Master's of Theology and then the PhD program as compared to the MDiv program leading to the PhD, since one is 2 years and one is 3, I believe.
Both degrees are excellent preparation for PhD work, and graduates of both degrees are often successful in applying to doctoral work here, and often successful in applying for doctoral work elsewhere. Yeah, so I mean, the percentage of MTS students whose goal is doctoral study is higher than the percentage of MDiv students, but you should not choose between the two degrees based on a theory about which one is better for getting into doctoral work. You should choose based on which one makes more sense of your own kind of curricular needs and sense of identity.
Okay, we need to let Annie Russell, our registrar, have a few words, and then we'll have a couple of minutes for questions. So Annie, if you could tailor your remarks, because we only have 5 minutes left. Sorry.
Thank you, Janet, and welcome to everyone here. And for those of you who are visiting us from outside of New England, welcome to Fall in New England. I'm Annie Russell. I am the registrar here at HDS, and I would just like to start by saying that if any of you have specific questions related to the specifics of degree requirements, I will be at lunch. I will have a table at lunch, and I have open office hours this afternoon. It's on your schedule, but do feel free to approach me individually with your specific questions. In the interest of time, I'll keep my other remarks short and broad. The registrar's office at HDS, we serve students and we serve faculty. We are servants of all. For you as potential students here at HDS, we provide many of the basic services that a registrar's office provides. We take care of your enrollment. We provide transcripts. We also work with faculty. I have a lot of experience working with all of my colleagues here on this panel with regard to progress toward degree, specific courses toward degree requirements. You're making your progress through your program. We are entrusted with that responsibility, and we take it very seriously. I want to just let you expand a little bit on what some of my other colleagues have said with regard to the rich opportunities at not just here at Harvard Divinity School, but at the larger university and the member schools of the Boston Theological Institute. A big part of what our office does is to help facilitate those opportunities for you in terms of answering your questions about cross-registration, facilitating your cross-registration, making sure that if you want to take a course, you're eligible to do that and how that will work. And also working with my colleagues to determine how that coursework fits into your degree requirements. We also work with the faculty on course offerings and making sure that that all of that works smoothly and that the process of you becoming a student, progressing through your degree program, and culminating in that day in May when you are awarded your degree is as smooth as possible for you.
Okay, we have time for one question. Anybody?
I have a cross-cutting question on the research and reading. How many R&Rs would you allow, and would you also be open to having faculty from outside the Divinity School supervise the R&R?
I don't believe we have a limit on how many reading and research courses a student can take as long as they meet the requirements of their degree. You're not supposed to take them in your first semester, and they do have to be with regular members of the HDS faculty because we're not paying, unfortunately, faculty in other departments to offer that service to our students.
However, it could be possible that, the biggest thing for that is getting the faculty to agree to do it with you, because faculty don't have that much time to do a whole bunch of those. But if there was some particular person outside of the Divinity School who wanted to work with you, and you could get a faculty member here to agree to be the person whose name, and so there's a way you can do that as long as an HDS Divinity faculty is willing to take responsibility for it. But you would have to work that out. Okay, we need to stop now, but wait just 1 second. I just want to say, I'm sorry, but that anyone who wanted to talk with me in particular, I will have office hours at 2 p.m., but only for a limited amount of time. My office is upstairs, so please try to get there at 2 if you're thinking about talking with me in particular. But otherwise, this is over, and you're on to the next event. Thank you.
Articulated the rules.